Hi everyone. Welcome to the CISO mentoring session. And my name is Chani Sims, and I'm the Managing Director for Meta Defense Labs and UK and Sri Lanka. I'm the founder of CISO Exec Platform, and I'm also a cybersecurity professional during the day in my day job. So we got some fantastic speakers lined up today, and I'm just going to give you an introduction of everyone in a minute. And let's say, so just a bit about the call. I know we have had few mentoring calls in the past, and we finally got the funding to have a platform ready to run recorded mentoring. This is what it is. So this session is going to be recorded, and we're going to be you're going to run in these sessions to invite some fantastic leaders in the industry and to share their stories, knowledge with us. So we will be running, we're planning to run this call every month. I think it's every third Tuesday of the month, right? So I got some fantastic mentors joining us. So let's introduce you to lovely Didar Gelici. Did I say the name correct? Yeah.
Yes, Didar Gelici. Very, very good.
Didar Gelici. Didar is a cybersecurity and risk professional who's kindly agreed to volunteer for CISO platform.
It was my honor.
Thank you. It's nice to have you. And you should introduce yourself a bit later on to everybody. Then we have our new advisory member to CISO platform, our brilliant Becky Pinkard. She's a CISO at Aldermore Bank. Did I say that correct, Becky?
That's right. That's it.
Ah, cool. There you are. Hi.
Hi.
And then we got, most of you have met our lovely emotional intelligence guru, Jackie Hinds.
Hello.
She's the founder and CEO of Society of Emotional Intelligence UK, and she's also an advisory member for CISO platform. So, may I ask Didar to introduce herself first, and then Becky and Jackie in that order, please.
So I'm Didar. I've been doing cyber for the last 10-12 years. I worked in audit and risk mainly. I've been in teams in first line, second line, and third line of defense. I've done it all. But recently, since the beginning of this year, I have become so much interested in the technical side of the stuff because I've always seen myself as a non-technical person, and I always advertised myself like that. But I'm not doing that anymore. I'm learning a lot of stuff, and I discovered that I already know a lot of technical stuff as well. And it's my pleasure to be here, and I can't pass on the fact that all your names are rhyming and mine isn't, so I'm so jealous. Maybe.
We'll find a way to rhyme it, yeah. I think Becky.
Yeah, so very happy to be here. So like Didar, I've been in security for a long time, so a little bit longer though, a little bit older than you, I think, Didar. So about 23 years now myself. And just very happy to be here. I sort of feel like I've reached that point in my career where it's time for me to take, different lessons I've been through, experiences I've been through, things that I've had to learn, I think sometimes the overly hard way, and try to share back what little bit I can, and hope that maybe through my own advocacy I can help, maybe lighten the burden of the journey for some other folks within cybersecurity.
Would you tell us about a bit of your background and how you got into this field, and a bit about your current job, Becky?
Yeah, sure. So yes, background-wise, I got a degree at university in psychology, and just didn't really know what I wanted to do with that. So I was a bit tired of school. That's all I knew at that time. And so did a few odd jobs here and there, and then got into a help desk job. And it was through the help desk job that I saw my first security vulnerability. And as I like to say, that was sort of the fuse that lit the explosion to the rocket that became my security journey. So I just got really interested into that. And I've been fortunate over the years. I started off in a again, sort of opposite to you, Didar, I started off in a really more highly technical environment, in that I immersed myself into learning about firewalls and intrusion detection and intrusion prevention and network packet capture. And at one point I was, capturing and dissecting packets and all the way down to the bits and bytes. And then I started to teach myself assembly and doing reverse malware stuff and forensics. And yeah, I did that for about 10 years. And then I was very fortunate to meet a lady that ended up helping me make the transition to the UK in my job with Barclays. And that's when I started to get a bit more serious about the management side of my career and growing up a bit in my career. So been about 10 years now, sort of moving away from the hands-on sort of geeky techie stuff and really leveraging and building on that knowledge now in the management side of what we do. So yeah, it's been very interesting. I feel very fortunate to have had the experiences I've had today.
Oh, lovely to have you here, Becky. I think it's people are going to have lots of questions from you. Just listening to your background, I've already got so many questions I want to ask you. But yeah, thank you for being here. Jackie, do you want to introduce yourself a bit? And it's about about your background, how you got into your field, and what you do in your current job.
Right.
Highlights.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Jaqueline Hinds here. I'm an emotional intelligence coach and leadership consultant. My background is human resource development. That's a specialism. But I started off humble beginnings as a copy typist in a bank, clearing bank, in their training centre. So all the bankers that used to come and get their training in London, I actually worked in the training centre doing the administration and supporting them, but always had this penchant to support people and get them over the hurdles that they were sort of like facing with sort of like issues around training and development. And it started off with the IT side of things, so Word, Excel, PowerPoint and transition. But over the years, I stayed there for 13 years and I left as a qualified trainer. So while I was there, I actually upskilled and did my certificate in training practice with the sort of like CIPD. So when I left, I was a qualified trainer and I cut my teeth in organizations like Lehman Brothers and Deutsche Bank, where I was able to use a lot of my skills that I'd gained over that period of time. I then sort of like joined Instinet, which is a Reuters subsidiary. So I was actually working with traders, junior traders, sort of like training them and the general staff. But it's really getting them upskilled on the training platform, but also the personal development side of things. And 9/11 put paid to that. So I got made redundant and did my postgrad and did my master's in human resource development. That's what I specialized in, and got a job with Ernst & Young in their knowledge management financial services arena as a knowledge officer. So if anyone knows about the knowledge management platform, they're all systems. So Bloomberg, OneSource, Mintel, I had to learn all of them, but I had to train people on them as well. So I wasn't aligned to any industry, but I worked as an internal consultant, working with the junior accountants to actually upskill on their clients using the tools and resources that were there. Loved it, absolutely loved it, but I needed a fresh challenge. And I decided I was going to go and try for another role elsewhere. Unbeknown to me, it was healthcare, because I didn't know that I was applying for a job in the healthcare. So I went to a selection. Well, I found out after they told me, but it was a selection centre, and I've worked in the NHS for nearly 10 years in only 2 trusts. So 2 of the largest merged healthcare trusts in UK and Europe. So Imperial College Healthcare and Barts Health. So I joined Hammersmith Hospital, which merged into Imperial College Healthcare. And overnight it was 10,000 staff. So I was a leadership development consultant there, working with the individuals in each of the services, you know, to get them ready, fit for purpose in their roles, transitioning, but also the upskill of what the merger is going to entail. So transformation. And did a lot of coaching, did a lot of training there, stayed there for 4 years, and then decided that I needed to get nearer home, because during that time I had my son, and that was in West London. I live in East London. So I joined Whipps Cross, which then they said was going to merge into Barts Health. So it went from 3,600 to 15,000. So lovely, you know, more transitions there, you know, and that's where I suppose all the work that I was actually doing, which feeds into emotional intelligence. I sort of like did change management, stress management, conflict resolution. So those are all part and parcel of the, you know, sort of EQ family. I left there after 4.5 years and went to the Middle East, and then stayed there a year. And when I came back, I decided, right, with all the skills that I've got, I'm best to sort of like work as a consultant. So I got actually licensed as an emotional intelligence coach, and I do a lot of the stuff that I do now is, you know, face-to-face training, but I also do coaching online for leaders and general staff on emotional resilience and well-being. So that's me in a nutshell.
Thanks, Jackie.
Wow.
That sounds great. I think Didar and myself got some questions. So Didar, you want to go first?
Yeah, I would love to. So just before I go, just a reminder for the new joiners, we have the chat window open as well. If you want to type in your questions anytime, just feel free. So my first question to both of you guys. So I came to know lots of successful, strong and smart women in cyber and in other industries.
Mm-hmm.
And they all have at least one thing in common. That thing is knowing when to ask for help and not seeing that as a weakness. So I want to ask you both, what types of help did you get in your career, like mentoring, coaching, training, and how did it impact you? Shall we start with you, Becky?
I was going to say let Jackie go. She's the expert.
Okay. Both fine by me.
Yeah. Okay. What kind of help? I suppose along the journey, you feel empowered by either your line manager or somebody who you look up to, who you aspire to be like. And I suppose with the networking and the working relationships that you build up, I found quite a few mentors inside and outside of the organization, who I kind of like thought, you know, when I grow up, I want to be like that, you know, and then speak to them and then see if they could sort of like share their knowledge and help shape me. So it's not a clone, but it was taking that knowledge and applying it to where I want to go and what I wanted to do. So, you know, there've been quite a few, and I've been coached as well. So, you know, that's important.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo what you're saying there. I absolutely agree. And I've also not ever sort of hesitated to reach out for help where I've met people along the way that inspired me. You know, so one of the very first times I ever reached out to someone, and it was more for an opportunity to do some work. Years and years ago, I went to a Hinds Institute training course, and they're pretty well known within the cybersecurity industry. And at the time, I was so new into the industry, and to be fair, Hinds was still pretty new. I mean, this is like back in 2000. But I was just so blown away by their courses and what they were doing. And I had sat through a course with Stephen Northcutt, and I was so blown away by his style and just how engaging and how passionate he was about what he was doing. And I walked away from that experience, and I took away from that experience, you know, that I was just like, wow, this is so cool. And I happened to go to a meeting that another sort of like smaller get together that he hosted at the time I was living in Dallas. And again, it was a great session, right? And already, I'd only been in my career by this point in time, maybe 4 years, 3 years, something like that. And already I had been to so many conferences where people were like, blah, 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 click, blah, 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 click, you know. And here was this guy that was just so inspiring and so impassioned about what he was doing. And so at that point in time, and I had this nerves in my stomach, and I had this just like I was shaking. I was like, I'm going to go talk to him. You know, I've got to go talk to this guy. And I did it. And I went up to him and I just said, I'm blown away. I said, what can I do? I want to work with you guys. You know, what can I do to help? And that was literally all I left the man with. And fortunately, that conversation then put me on the path that turned into me ending up being a certified instructor with SANS for over a decade. And I think that's what I would, you know, pass on now to people is don't let that feeling, those nerves and that fear, you know, I think about that as what drives me. You know, that's a ball of excitement about something that I want to do. I don't let that turn me away from doing something. So I always try and tell people to use that, and hopefully they'll drive, you know, feel that drive as well.
Thank you.
That's really true, because I've always seen that if you don't ask questions and if you don't ask for help, you'll never know what you're going to get. So if you don't try it, you know, then you at least tried. I think that's what we should follow always. If you're not sure about something, because we never know, we will never come to the stage we are experts in everything we know, and we wouldn't, you know, we learn things every day. So it's a matter of asking for help and asking questions, and also finding the right mentors. Like something that I would like to add is, in my career, I've had mentors for all different subjects. So for example, if I want to be knowing something about virtualization, I'll have a mentor for virtualization. If I wanted to get to know about emotional intelligence, I got Jackie. So things like that. And then now I got all of you guys at the CISO advisory members as mentors. And it's using the closest people that you can trust as mentors as well. So I think having mentors really helps, and it helps you develop into where you want to go in your career.
Yeah, I think where I've had to formalize mentoring relationships, right? So the example I just gave obviously wasn't really a mentoring relationship. It was more of an opportunity to try something. But where then I've had, you know, people I've talked to go, hey, what do you actually want out of this? And I've seen that help to really drive a quote unquote mentoring relationship, because then you're coming to them and saying, look, this is what I'd like to achieve. This is what I think I can get from you. And then you sort of set parameters around that. And I think that's made it more successful whenever I've been in, you know, like as the mentee and those kind of situations. And I kind of learned that lesson the hard way too, because I've been in the opposite situation where it's not had sort of boundaries and things, and it sort of peters off after a while, you know, and then you're left going, hey, what happened to my mentoring relationship?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I've had where in the business also we had to formalize the mentoring sessions, where you would come up with an agreement, you sign the NDA, and then you have structured mentoring. And also from my IBM background, it's all about mentoring. So you find in mentoring and formalizing it. So you set your goals and you have a mentor for different subjects, and then making sure that you help each other in terms of achieving those goals. I think it's really important point that you raised, Becky. It's good to have mentors and friends supporting you and helping you, but if you're serious about your career, where you want to get to, structured mentoring really helps.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I was starting to say I'm so interested in what you do as well, Jaqueline, because one of the things that I also, again, I learned the hard way, but I learned that emotional intelligence is so critical to the journey that we're on, you know, within our individual businesses. And I say I learned that the hard way because I had a CISO many, many years ago, but he told me, he said, I'll never forget it. He told me, he said, there's no room in business for emotion. And he told me that because at the time I was so upset about something I was working on that I sort of had tears coming down my face, and I was so mad at myself for crying in front of this guy. And that's what he told me. And so I carried that for a long time. I actually coached people and told other people that, oh, I'm so regretful over that. But then I sort of put two and two together myself over the last couple of years. And I wish I would have known you sooner, Jaqueline. You could have helped me so much more.
You know something, it's all part of a journey, because you know, listening to what you were saying about your own journey, Becky, it kind of reminded me of when I was in the bank. And being the administrator for this program where I'm watching people from all over the country come to London to actually train. It was like an X Factor type program. And they were coming in and auditioning for this program so that they could be tutors. And I thought, I can do that. And I plucked up the courage and went to the director, and I sort of said to him, you know, would you consider me actually doing the program? He just looked at me and sort of said, don't be silly, go and do the typing. And you know, that one sentence knocked my career for 3 years.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on, Becky.
Yeah,
all it takes sometimes is that, right? And then don't you regret that once you finally realize that you end up holding yourself back through those feelings. Because I had the same, I obviously not saying, I had a similar situation happen where I had a boss that, again, years ago, but I thought that I was going into an assessment to be told that I was going to get top bonus, right? Because I'd worked so hard. And in the conversation, he tried to give me a performance improvement plan.
Wow.
It's called a PIP here. And
oh, I know the PIPs, yeah.
I was flabbergasted. I was absolutely flabbergasted. And I even told him, I said, you could knock me over right now and I would be no more surprised than you've surprised me. And that knocked my confidence for so many years. Oh my gosh, for so many years, knocked my confidence.
Yeah, it would do, because you start to then think, I'm not as good as I think I am.
Exactly.
But then, you know, as part of your journey, there are other people that come and empower you. And for me, it was the audiovisual technician. He heard about what happened, and he sort of like came to me one day and he goes, I'm really sorry about what happened. And I'm thinking, why are you apologizing? It wasn't you, you know. And then he just asked me whether I'd heard of desktop publishing. And I went, no. And he said, would you want to learn it? And I went, yeah, all right. So for 3 months, I had this fantastic upskill. And that not only gave me my confidence back in my abilities, but it also gave me tools and resources of being creative and innovative in the training material that I design. And I'm forever, it's in my book as well, I'm forever grateful about that, because things can impact you, but there's always something that will bring you back to the road that you should be on.
Yeah.
Ah, brilliant.
That's brilliant. I got a question for you, Jackie. So if you were to give yourself any career advice to yourself 10 years ago, where everything started going crazy with technology and everything, what would you say?
What would I say? I would say to myself 10 years ago, just batten down the hatches and get on with it. Because if I think back to 10 years ago, I had some fantastic opportunities. There's no regrets though. Fantastic opportunities were placed in my pathway where I would have been so much further forward years ago, but I wasn't ready then. I wasn't ready then, and I recognize that. But what I would say to myself is, you know, sort of like, be confident in who you are and what you can do. Don't let anybody take away that knowledge, expertise, and that joy that you have within yourself. Because, you know, sometimes you've got your goals and aspirations and you're sort of enthusiastic, thinking, yeah, I'm going to do this. And you mention it to somebody, whether it's a loved one or a colleague, and then they just look at you and say, nah, I can't see you doing that. And it kind of like, So you sort of think, nah, maybe it's not for me. But I would say, I would say, don't let anybody squash or pour cold water on your dreams.
Is that, would you say that would be like one of the best advice you've been given in your career?
I would say yes, that's one, but the others, it's explore your options. You know, if you've got something that you want to do, explore it, go with it. And if it doesn't work and you're still interested, you'll find another route around that will suit you, that you can still achieve it.
Yeah, I wish I've known that 10 years ago.
I wish I knew somebody like me.
Yeah. I know. If I had myself now go back in future and tell me, don't listen to this, you know, people who try to bring you down,
hold you back.
It'd be a good lesson. And do you have any regrets?
No, I think the only regret that I have is that I didn't actually venture out and do and explore the things that were actually given to me. You know, when somebody invites you to a banquet and you come up with all of these excuses, oh, I haven't got a dress, I haven't got the right shoes. It's like all of that. And I just wish that I'd just gone. Even if I felt like the child at the table, I would have, you know, seen for myself a lot sooner. You know, that's what I'd say.
Cool. What about you, Becky? What would you tell your 10 years younger self?
Well, I'm nodding away because I mean I feel, you know, so so empathetically about that. I just shared this tweet the other day, a quote that someone had sent out, and I'm going to read it to you guys because it really resonated for me, and I'll tell you why. The quote was by a chap named Dennis Waitley, who's apparently a well-known motivational speaker in the States. I personally didn't know him. I had to look him up. But so the quote was, "It's not what you are that holds you back. It's what you think you are not." And that resonated so strongly with me because the big struggle and the big challenge that I had for so many years, and I still struggle with it today, but I try to try to rise above it. But it is that I don't fit into the expected bucket, you know. So I don't. The best way to describe it is I when I lived in the States, I had opportunities to go to this thing called the Executive Women's Forum, and you know, it is as awesome as it sounds. It's all these amazing women in cybersecurity and governance and risk and compliance that come together. And I was petrified the first time I went to it because I weighed more than I do now. Looked pretty much the same, just a lot heavier. And I knew that I wouldn't fit the model. I didn't fit the mode. You know, I don't wear makeup. I don't have the hair. I don't have the looks. And I was miserable. I had the absolute worst time ever. And that, again, really held me back, you know, and I came away from it and I was gutted that I'd had a horrible time and a horrible time of my own creation. And so I sort of, I just pondered over it for a long time. And then I made my mind up. I was going to go back again next year if I could. And I was going to fake it until I made it. And so I did. And I went back to the event and I plastered a smile on my face and I shoved to the back of my mind that I felt fat and horrible and uncomfortable and I didn't fit in with all these executive-y looking women that I didn't match. And you know what? I had an absolutely brilliant time. I met so many amazingly phenomenal women. I had so many amazing conversations. They didn't give a rat's poop what I looked like. And if they did, they didn't bring it to my face. And you know what? I decided in the long run, I'm okay with that. I'm absolutely okay with that. Like I said, I still battle with that feeling, but I wonder how many of us do battle with that in our own unique ways. Even though you might look at someone and go, man, you fit in perfectly. Look at you. You're the exact mode of what everyone expects executive woman to be, you know, or professional woman to be in our industry. But people still, I know, suffer with that. And so I like to share that story just to help anyone that maybe they might feel some comfort that someone else is going through it.
No, thanks. I think that's I think we've all felt that at some point in our life. And I think sometimes it's fair to say that we create our own glass ceiling.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. So if we can't break out of that, no one else can. It has to come within, I think. I myself, 10 years ago, if people from IBM knew me, they wouldn't recognize me now because I would be the person who would find every excuse there is to avoid a presentation or go and do public speaking or do, you know, that kind of things, because I never liked crowds and I never liked being around lots of people and looking at me. I used to be very shy, and I even had to go through a PIP because I came across as not confident. They put me on a PIP and didn't give me bonus because I was not confident enough and because I was too shy to do things that I wanted to do. And I think every one of us go through that stage. Right now, I think I would be the quite opposite. But yeah, still have doubts sometimes.
Well, I think we all do. I think you're human if you still have doubts sometimes, you know. I think if you don't wake up or don't occasionally have a doubt, then I think maybe you're a bit of a robot, really.
I think in most things we've got to sort of like do what Susan Jeffers says on her book, feel the fear and do it anyway. Because if it's something that you really are passionate about, you've got to let that override everything else, because you're not going to know what it's like until you actually do it or try it. You know?
Yeah.
True.
Exactly.
Mm.
And you're never going to be ready for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. You're
You
never
just
gonna.
need to give it a go.
Yeah, yeah.
I think
Cool.
you got a question, Dida.
Yeah, I do. My question is for Becky. I think you have covered it slightly, but we do want to still ask you about your cybersecurity career and how you got to it, and in a bit more detail, maybe from the beginning.
I think I would like to hear a bit more about the SANS. I think that's fantastic that you were an instructor. It just blows my mind sometimes to think that you're an instructor for 10 years and you probably know everything about cybersecurity.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think actually one of the most important things I think SANS taught me is that it's okay not to know everything in security. You know, I taught for them for about a year or so, and I again ran into Stephen Northcutt at one point after that, and he said, "Hey Becky, you know, yeah, you've been with us for a little while now. How's it going? How are you doing? How are you feeling?" And I just told him, I was like, "Man, Stephen, you know, I'm loving it. I have a great time doing these classes. You know," I said, "the one problem I still really have is I'm petrified someone is going to ask me a question I don't know in one of these classes." And again, I'll never forget, you know, he told me, he said, "Becky, how could you know everything?" He was like, "It's okay not to know everything." He was like, "Yeah, tell them, say, I don't know. Let's figure it out." You see, you know, if someone tells you that they know everything, they're lying to you. There's no way.
That's very true. Yeah.
They're going to know everything. So I think for me, SANS was great because I learned a lot. And I also, you know, look, the reason I got stuck into it is because I love the instructors. And I was like, hey, I want to be part of this. You know, I can't afford it. How can I get some awesome training? And so for me, it was a great way to also get hands-on to material, you know, in addition to growing my own network. And so it was interesting because whenever I was doing the classes, and this was before they had, you know, they have a much more rigorous program now to become an instructor. I probably can't even do it now. But back in the day, you know, it was really all about, look, we'll put you up in front of a class with one of our certified current instructors. They didn't call them certified at the time, you know, and let you sort of grow into the role. And so then based on feedbacks, they've always done evaluation forums and stuff based on feedback, you know, then they would give you your own class and your own opportunity to instruct. And so I got an opportunity to learn, you know, by partnering with people and to get that exposure and experience, and then sort of got pushed into the deep end from there. But it was funny because no matter how many times I've probably taught Security Essentials, which is one of their introductory classes. Probably taught that thing about 25 times, I think. And every single time I taught it, I would have to get the books and just pour over the books beforehand to be fully prepared to go in front of the class. Because again, I was petrified I was going to forget something. I was going to miss an important story. I was going to forget, you know, how to piece something together. But what I discovered over time is that I you know, was feeling more comfortable with handling the scenarios and handling the questions and realizing that, guess what? Yes, something is going to go wrong every single time you present. And you know what? It's okay. I think the biggest lesson, again, that I took away from the teaching aspect to it was it's all about the facade that you put on when you're in front of the class. If you act like you're uncertain, if you act like you know, feel timid, if you act shy, if you talk in a certain way, the class feels that and they feed off of how you present yourself. And so for me, the lesson in presentations that I took away on that was invaluable because I learned how to get up in front of a stage, you know, grab the microphone and command the presence. You know, this is what I have to say. You will listen. I don't care if you like it. I hope that you like it, but it's not going to hurt me if you don't like it. I'm still going to say it, type of thing, you know. And that really helped me over the years. So yeah, there was a lot of cool stuff I got out of it technically by being close to the material and by participating in the awesome labs and everything, but then also took away valuable experience in terms of, you know, just getting to present so often over so many different places with so many different audiences.
Yeah, I was so over the moon when you said you'd be happy to be an advisory member for CISO. I mean, what a perfect advisory member for the platform, because this is exactly what we talk about. I mean, not only just cybersecurity, we talk about facilitation, you know, that is important because when you go out and speak in the public, what you highlighted there about confidence, and if you don't feel like you're on the stage, it's difficult because audience can feed off your emotions. I've got a question which is going on a slightly different direction, but it's about the advancement of technology and what the future is going to bring. So when it comes to training yourself, what training skills do you think are most needed, and how would you recommend going about getting those skills? Because something I find very challenging is keeping up with the threats and vulnerabilities that's coming out every hour, every day. And the technology advancement is just going crazy fast that you cannot play catch up and keep up to date with everything. How would you, what advice would you give for someone who wants to get trained, and how do you go about doing that?
I think so. My favorite answer in security, I always joke about this. My favorite answer in security is it depends. But I always say that because it really does depend. It depends upon, you know, where you are in your career. It depends upon what your specific passions and current talents and capabilities are. It depends upon your own personal trajectory. You know, what do you have your eyes set on? Where do you want to go? So just presuming, you know, sort of that you're maybe midway into your career, maybe you've come in through it like a GRC type of route, you know, softer security skills type of route, and you're interested in going into a more technical route. I think the first thing that I always tell people is, first of all, I think you need to really focus on what is the exact kind of technical experience that I want to gain. Because again, within security, it's so diverse. There's just so much to learn, and people can get easily overwhelmed. So, you know, they can start to look at anything from pen testing to forensics to, you know, malware, reversing malware. They can dig into intrusion detection and prevention. They can look at firewalls. They can look at, you know, the network side of troubleshooting, incident response. I mean, there's so much. And if you don't sort of pick a category and then make a decision around, look, why am I interested? What do I want to dig into? What's it going to help me with in terms of progression? Then I think you've almost sort of defeated yourself before you've even managed to really get stuck in. So that's always my first piece of advice is, you know, pick something. And then once you've picked a particular area, then start to reach out to different people, get some feedback, you know, don't hesitate to ask questions. Hey, what helped you? What did you learn? What do you think is important? What's a good starting point? What should I know? But it's really all about using, again, other people that have experience to help shape and inform yourself on how to pursue that. Now, not to say you couldn't just pick something, hey, pen testing, and then go straight to Google and start to just answer your own questions. Of course you could do that. I just happen to think it's very beneficial to use other people and start to form your network straight away as well, because your networks are going to be so beneficial as you go forward.
Yeah, I find that too, because I've also tried lots of things. I mean, when I first started, I tried pen testing, well, studying to how to hack, and then hacking the hackers, forensics, pretty much. And then I've now somehow moved more into GRC, from very technical background to more around risk policy governance and C-level advice. I think you're right. You have to find out where your comfort zones are, where you like most areas. And is it okay to change time to time? Because I find myself changing my skill set and my training time to time. Feel like, okay, I think I need to be specialized on this area for the next 3 years. And I go and study and then get new skills and try and do that for years. And then I get bored and then I go into something else. So I don't know if it's the right way to do it, but I think you're right about finding what you want to do and trying it out.
Yeah, well, again, just like Jaqueline was talking about with her own career and the evolution of her own career, you know, I think you need to pursue what drives you. You need to pursue what makes you have that curiosity, what makes you feel, you know, sort of the need to get questions answered, because it's that passion then, I think, that propels people into some of the most exciting adventures that they could have. I think where you have folks that feel compelled to, you know, oh, I've learned pen testing, so therefore I must be in pen testing for the rest of my career, they're probably going to get bored if they don't actually feel that same excitement they initially felt.
Yeah, cool. And Didar?
I have a question for Jackie.
Okay.
So we would like to learn a bit more about how would you explain why emotional intelligence is key in leadership.
Right. Okay. As we know, emotions are in everything that we do. Everything. Every decision we make, every concern, whatever, it's governed by emotions. And if you look at leadership, it's about understanding. If I sort of like said emotional intelligence 101, it's about understanding your emotions and that of other people's. That's like the foundation stone. But then when you look at emotional intelligence for leaders, then you go into a territory where they're looking after a workforce. They're looking after and expecting the best out of them. And if we liken the leadership as the parent and the workforce as the children, like with all children, they follow the leader. So if you want an emotionally intelligent workforce, you need to be an emotionally intelligent leader. And it's important because people get into leadership positions, but they may not have all the qualities of an emotionally intelligent leader. And that lack of EQ, EI is then passed on to the workforce or the people that they may be mentoring or coaching as a result of that. So I can talk about the model that I'm accredited in, and it's the EQI 2.0. It has 5 composite scales and 15 subset scales. So you've got things like self-perception, where you look at self-regard, self-actualization, and your emotional self-awareness. And then you've got self-expression. And as part of that, you will have assertiveness, a level of assertiveness. And people think, oh, assertiveness, oh, it's because you can't do things. Assertiveness comes in many shapes and forms. And as a leader, you need to be comfortable in asserting yourself in situations and undertaking things without sort of showcasing that you may be worried, you may be frightened to actually explore this, because it will be picked up. So I'm not just saying that emotional intelligence, you need to be sort of looking over your shoulder. It's a great thing once you've actually got it, because it helps you as a leader to tap into your emotions, empathy, you know, your stress tolerance, your optimism, especially if you've got big tasks to do. It's good to be able to tap into your emotions and the emotional intelligence profile to know how you can deal with certain things. And it's good that you've got a workforce or peers that are also emotionally intelligent, because or emotionally intelligent, because it makes it so much easier. I mean, Chani, I one of the things that actually helped me to sort of like explore emotional intelligence within the cybersecurity arena was to actually do a report with you, and to do a mini feedback session where we explored some of these competencies, you know, sort of like stress tolerance and things like that. So, you know, from your experience, I can sort of like say, how was it for you?
I loved it because, you know, they say that it's all about emotions, but you can't get emotional. So it's all about understanding myself, things I didn't know. There's no right or wrong answer. That assessment I did with you.
Yeah.
Need to understand where my emotional levels are in different scales. Like assertiveness, how empathic, how much empathy I have towards other people, and things like that. It just, that whole chart, it just gives you a different level of perspective around how you know how aware are you with your emotions. Because if you can't understand your own emotions, you have no chance of understanding other people's emotions.
Absolutely.
You need to be able to put yourself in their shoes to see things in a different perspective.
Yeah, no,
and I think that has a lot to do with being a good leader, I think.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Because the thing is, quick example, when you think about your workforce as a leader, you've got projects to do, and you've got to sort of like task your workforce to actually undertake it. So there's a lot of things that you will delegate to them. You're expecting them to sort of hit the ground running. Now, if one of your sort of like team members or one of your direct reports comes back to you and says, I can't do it, you're going to be thinking, well, I've got a deadline on that. So you can either look at it and think, well, why didn't you come to me sooner? But you can't shout at them. Some people do, and that's not the good way to do it. But they can say, look, are you having problems? And then work with the individual through that. And it's about understanding where individuals come from, because not everybody's at the same level. So it's having that wider scope and spectrum of looking at your workforce, your peers, you know, the tasks that you've got at hand, and then looking at yourself and how you can respond to it in a more constructive and progressive way. You know, it's a difference between sort of getting the project done seamlessly, you know, and you could talk about it, or getting it done and cracking the whip and everybody feeling disgruntled. Emotional intelligence is about understanding yourself, and then you can understand why people dig their heels in, they react a certain way, because you can understand where they're coming from. It gets you to walk in somebody else's shoes.
And also it eventually it helps you to create that supportive culture within an organization.
Absolutely.
That's why I keep on going on about creating emotionally intelligent cybersecurity leaders, because we need that in the industry. And I know, Becky, being a CISO, it's a very demanding and very stressful job sometimes, right? And how do you think it helps you to manage, how do you think emotional intelligence helps you to do a better job?
Yeah, so it's funny because I've already seen examples of where at least having that awareness for myself, you know, is helpful in this kind of job. I mean, it's been helpful in other jobs as well, don't get me wrong. But yeah, for this job in particular, I think especially where you feel passionate about doing cybersecurity properly, you know, for an organization, I think it can feel quite stressful where you run into things that come across as blockers to being successful in your journey of cybersecurity. And so I think being able to Jackie's point, being able to see and understand, you know, why those things come across as blockers by putting yourself into the shoes, you know, or into that perspective. I used to always tell people into the goggles of the person that's your blocker, or that feels like, you know, they're presenting your blocks. Then it makes it just makes the whole process feel a bit more reasonable, you know. And I always also used to remind my teams, especially in my last job, you know, we were growing a capability really quickly. It's that digital shadows. We were growing a capability really quickly, and we were doing it, and everyone, you know, was actually motivated and really centered on, you know, being present at Digital Shadows, growing that capability and that product. And sometimes I would just remind my team, guys, we are all actually in the same boat. We are, I know it doesn't feel like it, but we are rowing in the same direction, you know. And I think it's having the perspective to be able to just help people remember that even though we're feeling some disagreement, we're feeling those challenges, we're feeling maybe that struggle, you know, that we're not agreeing, we are actually on the same page. Let's figure out a way, you know, to move forward together. And that's been the best thing for me over the past few years in particular, is finally reaching that own point of maturity with my own capabilities to then be able to use that, you know, with the teams that I work with.
Yeah, that's great. I think we're running into the question time, because we've only got like 6 minutes left.
Yeah.
Any questions to the audience? So any questions from the audience today? Let me just check.
There's nothing in the chat window.
Can you see anyone? No questions, guys? Oh, cool. So I got a question. If you're not going to ask, I'm going to ask the questions.
Yeah.
So
good thing
now,
we came prepared, right?
yeah, I had so many questions along the way. So one thing I wanted to ask about is AI. We're getting lots of, you know, we're going to be using lots of AI in future. And something that I've seen is with the looming threat of AI replacing future jobs, do you think we can use emotional intelligence to augment what we do? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, go ahead, Jackie. I'll let you start.
I think to a certain degree, yes, but no, not completely. because you will always, it doesn't matter what you've got in place, you will always need that humanistic interaction and interface with it. You only have to look at some of the supermarkets where they've got those checkouts where people can just come in and do whatever, and there's nobody around to ask. When it messes up, then you've got to hunt around the whole store looking for somebody that can clear it, to buy your items and go your way. You know, that's one.
It's alcohol. We know it, Jackie.
I'd say yes, but I don't drink.
Oh yes, you don't drink.
Yeah, so it will work up to a certain point, but every step of the way, everything that we create to simplify things, there needs to be a human behind it that drives it. And AI doesn't pick up the full emotional spectrum.
Yeah, well, I agree. I don't ever think AI could. I mean, the very nature of it is not, you know, it can't be a human. It can't replace a human. The other thing that I think is really fascinating about AI and the conversation, some of the conversation I see evolving around it, is the fact that they're talking about the people that are producing the code that drives AI and how the bias in the people that are creating it,
absolutely
creating bias in the AI results. And that to me is fascinating, because what that indicates to me is that we have to take this focus on diversity and inclusion in our workforces right through to every single facet of every single team in order to produce the best results. And AI is such a great example of that, you know.
It's funny because recently I was at a Chartered Institute presenting with a colleague of mine with recruiters, and that same question came up, and we talked about emotional intelligence and recruitment selection. And I said, what I do is one of the very few assessments that you can recruit for attitude and train for skills. Because if you've got a specific role, you can take them through the emotional intelligence profile for the key specifics and the important bits of the role, and then everything else, because with the systems, the bias is there.
Ladies, I'm afraid the time is running out, and I want to continue this discussion because it's just so interesting. Any last messages to the wide audience, Jackie?
I would say never give up on the dreams that you've got, the goals and aspirations. There is always someone there to support you along your journey. They might not be able to take you right to the end, but they can be part of it until you find somebody else that can take you the rest of the way.
Thank you. That's really good advice. Thanks. Becky?
Yeah, I think that's brilliant advice. I think the only thing I can add to that is, you know, don't be afraid to be yourself. I think the thing that I've really struggled with over time is how to be myself, and then how to be my best professional self, and figuring out that there's this separation between, you know, this silly sort of goofiness that I have at home and the silly goofiness that I want to have in the work environment, but how to tailor that in a professional way. You know, don't be afraid to try that. Don't be afraid to play with and test out, you know, and evolve your personality in your professional capacity over the lifetime of your career. I plan on continuing to evolve mine. So
I think being authentic is a good thing, because then you are not the same robot self, you know. I like being authentic because it shows who, you know, you're a human being, and you have different characters. You don't have to have a portrait of, okay, this is how you must be. This is how a CISO look like, or this is how a businesswoman looks like. I think that's just old-fashioned, in my opinion, isn't it? Well, anyway, thank you all so much. I wanted to ask also any interesting projects that you guys do at the moment you want to share. I know I got Jackie's book coming out. I got the first to review. Thank you, Jackie, for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And I'm so looking forward to having you guys for the next CISO boot camp. We are putting in place all the platforms and everything. We got plans going on for that, and also we're planning to have this course, so please feel to join. Feel to join on the next mentoring course. We haven't finalized who's going to be joining next, but we will announce it soon, so stay tuned. And if you like to join for the next course, you can contact me or email info@ciso.org, so we can add you to the call and have more meaningful discussions and mentoring sessions. And yeah, thank you all so much, and look forward to meeting you again in our next sessions.
All right. Thank you. Bye,
Thank
guys.
you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Take care. Bye-bye.